Good evening from Washington, D.C., and thank you to those of you joining us from around the world for news from a Catholic perspective. I'm Lauren Ashburn. The president continues his visit to the West with a stop in Nevada. President Trump is preaching unity today at the American Legion's convention in Reno, where he signed into law a bill for veterans. The president pledges to, quote, give our men and women in uniform the tools they need and the trust they have earned to fight and win. The stop in Nevada comes after a fiery speech by the president at a political rally in Phoenix last night. He started with calls for unity, but erupted in anger at the press and the GOP. Correspondent Mark Irons has more from the White House. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Lauren. Unity is on the president's agenda today, but last night an angry Donald Trump blamed the media for misrepresenting his response to violence in Charlottesville, Virginia. A night of unfiltered Donald Trump began with prayer.
The niece of Martin Luther King Jr.
Oh Lord, touch every house, every heart.
And the son of Reverend Billy Graham.
We're divided politically. We're divided racially.
Calling for unity before the president laid the blame.
If you want to discover the source of the division in our country, look no further than the fake news and the crooked media.
President Trump addressing last week's deadly white supremacist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. Critics say the president's response was weak. Trump is not letting it go.
They don't want to report that I spoke out forcefully against hatred, bigotry, and violence, and strongly condemned the neo-Nazis, the white supremacists, and the KKK.
The president also accused Democrats of choking his legislative agenda before turning on his own party.
I will not mention any names.
But it was clear he was taking aim at both of Arizona's Republican senators. First, John McCain, who voted against the bill to replace parts of Obamacare.
Think we were just one vote away from victory.
And Senator Jeff Flake.
Nobody wants me to talk about your other senator, who's weak on borders, weak on crime, so I won't talk about him.
The familiar campaign chant rang out in Phoenix, the president saying that a wall on the U.S.-Mexico border is absolutely necessary, issuing a threat to lawmakers.
The obstructionist Democrats would like us not to do it, but believe me, if we have to close down our government, we're building that wall.
A big advocate for strict border enforcement is former Arizona Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who was convicted in federal court for disobeying court orders to stop his immigration patrol. Now, the president has the power to pardon Joe Arpaio's conviction, and he suggested last night in Phoenix that he would do so.
Mark, talks are underway to renegotiate the North America Free Trade Agreement, a deal between the U.S. and Canada and Mexico that creates a trade bloc in North America. But I understand President Trump says it may not be around for long.
That's right. The president says the U.S. will end up probably terminating NAFTA at some point. He said he hasn't made up his mind yet. But meanwhile, Canadian and Mexican negotiators say they want to update NAFTA, not do away with it.
Correspondent Mark Irons at the White House. Thank you, Mark.